about as bad as my geography skills. You do not calculate the area of a triangle like you calculate the area of a square. And so that number I gave you for the square mileage is totally wrong. What it comes out to, approximately 208,000 miles. If you were to calculate that in that triangle there, and I couldn't tell you how to do it. Brother Anthony told me, but it didn't stick. But anyway, and that changes the size because I think what I gave you, well, I just said it was, what, 650,000? Well, this is about a third of that. And 208,000 square miles is slightly bigger than Yemen, which, if you know where Yemen is, below Saudi Arabia, or Spain, if you know what the size of Spain is slightly bigger than those nations. So, you know, have we got this completely right? Who knows? I saw this fellow that on YouTube that does Israel My Channel. He's got some really good stuff. In fact, he just did a video. It's almost identical to what I'm going to give you today. I mean, I was like, is he listening in? And he did something very much like this. But you know what he did? He took it like down the Nile, but he took it all the way down the Nile. And then when he brought it back up, it made a diamond instead of a pyramid. Now, if this thing ends up being like a diamond, okay, because some folks think that New Jerusalem is going to be the shape of a diamond. If this ends up being a diamond or a diamond shape, the size of this thing is humongous. Then it'll rival some of the largest countries. I think which one is Uzbekistan? Or, well, if you wouldn't, there's one over there in Russia that it would be as big as that. Kazakhstan? Oh, is it? But much bigger than what I'm talking about here. Now, I don't know. I kind of think it's like this, but I could be wrong. All right, we're going to talk about Canaan land, or Palestine, this morning. And when we're talking specifically, they call it the land of the Bible, because most of your Bible is dealing with this area. In fact, let me go ahead and I'm going to skip that one, and we're going to come back to it. Okay. All right, we're talking Israel there. You can see that it's pretty much a sliver that goes all the way up there to where if you get to Zidon, you've gone too far. I think I can't read the thing there, but it's I can't even pronounce it. But it's just before Tyre. You can see the border there, and that's where Israel, present Israel, ends. Now, their borders change. Okay, they change with they change with their obedience or disobedience. If they obey God, they increase their borders. If they disobey God, they decrease their borders. But if you were to take that sliver right there, it's somewhere around 7,000 square miles. That's what the land that Israel possesses right now and have control of. Okay? This is what we call the land of Palestine. And Palestine, if you can see here, is a bridge. It's a bridge between Mesopotamia and Egypt. The interesting thing about that is those are the two oldest civilizations on earth, and they're a bridge in between them. Turn to Joel chapter 3, verse 4. Now, let me make a mention. If the ranking that I gave you of 208,000 miles is even close, that would give them, as far as nations go, that would put them they would be 50th in rank in landmass. Now, we don't know how that's going to change from the tribulation. You don't know what God's going to do. He's going to level mountains. So who knows? But you know what? God doesn't need, he doesn't need a huge space to control this earth. He's going to do it from Jerusalem. So, and eventually, you know that the Jew inherits the entire earth, right? You know that, right? The earth is theirs. That's why the center of it is called Abraham's bosom. They're going to get the whole thing eventually. So in Joel chapter 3, verse 4, we find the name Palestine. It's the only time that it's found in the Bible. And it says there, yea, and what have ye to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon, and all the coast of Palestine? Will ye render me a recompense? And if ye recompense me swiftly and speedily, will I return your recompense upon your own head. So it's believed that it was named from the Philistines, that the word Palestine came from the Philistines, because we're going to see that they controlled all the coastline of Israel. In fact, this entire, well, let's look at it. And it's kind of hard to see. We probably should have got something a little closer, but I was thinking it'd be big enough. If you go up here to Tyre and Zidon, okay, which are really in Lebanon right now, they controlled from this area all the way down to Gaza, and maybe even down even further. And that's the Philistines, which are the Canaanites, controlled this area. Look at Genesis chapter 10, verse 19. Genesis 10:19. He tells you there, he says, Genesis 10:19, and the border of the Canaanites was from Zidon, as thou comest to Gerar, unto Gaza, as thou goest unto Sodom and Gomorrah, and Admah and Zeboam, even unto Lasha, I'm not sure how they pronounce that one, which is interesting. I think these might be the 5 nations that were destroyed at Sodom and Gomorrah, and there was five nations or cities, whatever you want to call them, that were destroyed back then. I know there's 4 of them. I don't know about that last one, but I think so. These would be the 5 destroyed. Notice that Gaza, which is right here, but if you go right over to here, you see this is the Dead Sea. And I believe that part of this Dead Sea, not all of it, but part of it, it will end up being the lake of fire in the millennium. And he says there that he's going to wipe them out, even unto, let me get my verse here, even unto Sodom and Gomorrah. You say, well, where's Sodom and Gomorrah? I think that all 5 of these are underneath the Dead Sea, the Salt Sea. They're underneath it. Because there's a verse in Jude that talks about those cities being destined for everlasting fire. Well, where's there's going to be an everlasting fire but the lake of fire? And that lake of fire begins south of Jerusalem during the millennium, because Jesus Christ ignites it. When he comes back without touching Sinai, but he comes down at Sinai and makes his way up what we call the King's Highway. And when he makes his way up the King's Highway, which is the same route the children of Israel took when they went into the land, he's going to go right by Edom. He has to, because right there at Selah Petra, which is on the, it'd be on this side of the Dead Sea, he's got to rescue some folks there, or he's going to put some folks there to, hold it. Yes, he needs to rescue some folks there that have been there for 42 months. And then when he comes up the coastline there, comes up the coastline, he's going to cross over Jordan where they crossed over, and you can't see it on this map. So what was I going to tell you about all that? Talked myself right out of my point. But you have the border of the Canaanites that runs all the way, the whole length of what we would call Palestine. Look at Genesis 17, verse 9 or 8. Oh, yeah. Anyway, that's a whole different study. It's been a while since I did that one too. So he says in Genesis 17, verse 8, I will give unto thee and to thy seed after thee the land wherein thou art a stranger, all the land of Canaan. Remember I told you that Canaan, I don't know, we kind of think that's some kind of glorious name. You know, it's really not. It's just one of the one of the children of Ham and becomes what God calls a federal head, and it's those people that are out of bounds and settle here. And God says, drive them out, because he didn't give it to them. Now, the whole world can't stand that. They absolutely cannot stand that that land belongs to somebody than the people that were squatting on it before they got there. That'd be like you going home from church today and find somebody in your house, which could happen, and and say that, well, I live here now, and the cops backing them up and making you leave. How'd you feel about that? See, I wouldn't call the cops, but anyway. But believe it or not, that kind of thing has been happening all over this country. I mean, if you've got like a rental and somebody gets into that rental and they're there for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, if they're there for any period of time, you have to go through the courts to get them thrown out. Who ever heard of such a thing? That's our justice system today. Completely out of whack. So when we talk about the Philistines, we're talking about the Canaanites, the land of Canaan. Okay, and they possessed when David's fighting with them and others, they're right here around Gaza. So if there's anybody over there now that's possessing, it's not Palestinians as such. It's Philistines, if they're anything. But I don't even think these are Philistines. These are Arabs. And there's a little bit of difference between your Philistines and your Arabs. But when you talk about the Palestinian state, that's a misnomer. There's no such thing. It's never existed. There were 30 different kings that possessed this area that they had to fight against and to overtake that land. 30. Not one, not Palestine or Palestinian state, but 30 different kings. So the news media is lying to you. There is no two-state solution. Get out. Get out, or God will drive you out. And when we talked about last week, that's only 3% of what God promised them, even recalculating from what I did. That's only 3% of what God's going to give them. You see what's going to happen to the rest of the people living in all those other places? You're going to get out or die. Because he's given it to them. Now, when you look at the topography of this, this was something that was kind of interesting. Egypt down here, and a good portion of Mesopotamia. The topography is monotonous, boring. You're over in Saudi Arabia. Monotonous and boring, would that describe it? Sand. About the only thing you see is the hills of dune. But the land of Israel, this area here that we're talking about, Palestine, the land of Israel is diverse. There is coastal land. They got all the coast up here from, like you say, from Gaza all the way up to nearly to Tyre. They got all that coastal land, beaches and everything else. They have foothills, mountains, fertile plains, valleys, gorges, and desert. It's one of the most diverse places on earth. And I was looking at their weather. It changes. All depends where you're at and which side of a mountain range or whatever, but it's mainly moderate. It's not too hot, not too cold. I have seen quite a few videos of Israel, especially where this guy does these tours. They're fantastic. And it is so sunny out and blue. That sky is so blue. And then you're looking out over to the Mount of Olives or to the Temple Mount or to Old Jerusalem. And it just an incredible sight. Beautiful. But you'd never be bored there. The topography changes. You could go up one place and be in a plain and go down another place and you have gorges and you have valleys and you just got all kinds of things. And then if you want to go to the desert, well, there's the Sinai Desert that you could go to. So it's very diverse. Now, let's talk a little bit about Abraham. I got to go back to one here. Whoops. All right. Turn to Genesis chapter 11. And we're going to start reading from verse 27. And this is just to give you an idea of where Abraham came from, where he was going, okay, and the rest stop along the way. This helped me because there's some things that I weren't clear in my mind, and then I had to actually study the thing through and clear it up. It says there in verse 27 of Genesis 11, now these are the generations of Terah. Terah begat Abram. So Abram's father's Terah. And he also begat Nahor and Haran. And Haran begat Lot. And Haran died before his father Terah in the land of his nativity in Ur of the Chaldees. So we're going to find out where Abraham and Sarah originally were from, and that is right here in this area. This is where you have Ur. Well, you've got it marked there, Ur of the Chaldees. This is where Babylon was. So this would be modern-day Iraq. This is where Abraham was. This is where his wife was from. This is where his family's from. It says, and Abram and Nahor took them wives. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife was Milcah. And the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah, and the father Iscah. I'm pronouncing these, probably butchering them. But Sarai was barren; she had no child. And Terah took Abram his son, and Lot the son of Haran. I'll get it right here in a minute. Let me start over. And Terah took Abram his son, and Lot the son of Haran, his son's son, and Sarai his daughter-in-law, his son Abram's wife, and they went forth with them from Ur of the Chaldees to go into the land of Canaan, and they came into Haran and dwelt there. It's interesting because it doesn't say anything about God calling this Terah, Abram's father, to do this. But he's headed toward the lands of Canaan, but he doesn't make it. It says they came unto Haran and dwelt there. Well, this is about 600 miles from where they left, but they came short. Actually, they came up through here, about 600 miles, and they landed. Where we got that at? Haran. Oh, yep, Haran. This is where they ended up. Now, it's showing that Haran is in Turkey, but according to scriptures, borders move all the time. Haran was in Syria. Okay, Haran was in Syria. It's important that you understand that because the rest of this is not going to make sense if you don't. And the area that they were in was called Padanaram. Padanaram, and you'll find that several times in Scripture also. So they settled right up here, and I think they named it after Lot's dead father. That's why they called it Haran. I mean, it makes sense to me. Either that or they found a place that, hey, it's called Haran. Let's stay here. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just assuming that's the reason they named it that. So this is as far as they got, and this is where Abraham is, and Sarai, and Lot, and Abraham's brothers are there, Nahor, and where's the other guy at? We got Abraham, Nahor, and Haran. I guess it is just Nahor. I think it's the son of Nahor I'm thinking about. We'll get into. Now, how long he was there, hard to say, but it could have been up to 50 years. Because it talks about when he leaves, he's 75 years old. So whenever he got there, when he's 25, maybe he's married to Sarah at 25. They have no children. But, of course, he doesn't have any children 50 years later either. So anyway, he could have stayed up to 50 years and not really bother any timeline here, or shorter. Genesis 12, turn there. Genesis 12, look at verse 1, and we're going to jump to verse 4. Now the Lord had said unto Abram, get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, unto a land that I will show thee. Where is he at when he gets this? Well, he's got to be, he's got to be in Syria when he gets this call. And he's specific. He says, not just get out of your country, but he says your kindred and your father's house. And verse 4, look there, it says, so Abraham departed as the Lord had spoken to him, and Lot went with him. And Abraham was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran. All right? Look, every time you disobey God, there's a price to be paid. He shouldn't have took Lot because he told him, he said, I want you to leave your kindred. Kindred includes Lot. Abraham probably felt sorry for Lot because, Haran died. Left him, and who knows, maybe he's even raised him, I don't know. But he took him with him. But if you think about what it cost, not only what it cost Israel down the line, the seed of Abraham, but what it cost Lot. Lot ends up being saved, give you that. The Bible says he was a saved man, but he was one of the most destitute, morally destitute Christians in the Bible. At least he seemed to be able to tolerate an unbelievable amount of filth and live among it. Lot did not make one good decision his entire life. Before his death, his two daughters were so destitute of morality that they lay with their own father just so they could have children. Okay? Those two children become Ammon and Moab, which are two of Israel's enemies. Now, if that's not one mistake, Abraham's going to do it again. There's no telling. Well, in fact, there's no telling how many times. Because what does Abraham do? He takes Hagar. Who do we get from Hagar? Ishmael. Who are the Ishmaelites? The Arabs. The ones they fight with. The ones that want to kill them, destroy them. The ones that are in Gaza are Arabs. Becomes one of Israel's chief enemies. And it goes on. I mean, he has another wife after Sarai, Keturah, and it mentions there Midian, the Midianites. I mean, it's like every enemy that Israel seems to have that really posed a threat to them, they were related to somehow. A good portion of them they were related to. And that is when you disobey God, it ends up costing you. Maybe not now, but later on. And it's best to be in complete obedience than partial obedience. So it says there in verse 5 that Abraham took Sarai's wife and Lot, his brother's son, and all their substance that they had gathered, and the souls that they had gotten in Haran, and they went forth to go into the land of Canaan, and into the land of Canaan they came. So they're now into a land that the Canaanites have more or less have control of, and he's moved right in there among them. Now, by the way, I don't know if you know it or not, but God is going to change that name of that area. It won't be called Canaan land. According to Isaiah 62, 1-4, if you want to write that down, what's it going to be called? Is not this the land of, y'all know the song, is not this the land of Beulah? Yeah. Turn over there, I'll show you the verse. Isaiah 62. Verse 1-4. Let's see, we can skip some of it here. Yeah, he says, verse 4, thou shalt no more be termed forsaken, neither shall thy land any more be termed desolate. Thou shalt be called Hesabah. I have no idea. And thy land, so here's what the land's called, Beulah. For the Lord delighteth in thee, and thy land shall be married. That's what it means, to be married to the land. Israel is supposed to be married to the land, but they've been kicked out of that land twice. Well, when God finally brings them back in, and during the millennium, they're going to be married to the land. He'll be calling that land Beulah. Okay. Now turn to Deuteronomy chapter 26, verse 3 to 5. Deuteronomy 26, verse 3 to 5. And he says, Thou shalt go unto the priest, and thou shalt be in those days, that shall be in those days, and say unto him, I profess this day unto the Lord thy God, that I am come into the country which the Lord sware unto our fathers for to give us. And the priest shall take the basket out of thine hand, and set it down before the altar of the Lord thy God, and thou shalt speak and say unto the Lord thy God. Now this is what a Jew has to say. A Syrian ready to perish was my father, and he went down into Egypt and sojourned there with a few, and became there a nation great, mighty, and populous. Okay? So how so? Well, first of all, we know that Abraham and Sarah were Chaldean, because they came from Ur of the Chaldees, right? From Babylon. But then they moved, and they came to Syria, or Padanaram, Haran. Isaac ends up going, Abraham sends his servant to go get a bride for Isaac, and where does he send him? Haran. Rebekah is a Syrian, which makes Jacob half Syrian. Okay? And Jacob is the one that ends up going down into Egypt with a few. The patriarchs, the Israelites there, all the tribes, if you will. And it says, Jacob got all of his wives from Haran. Because he went back there too, didn't he? Not only did they get Rebekah from Haran, but when Jacob has to flee because he swindled the birthright from Esau and the blessing, he goes right back to this place in Haran. And there's where he gets all his women. When I say wives, concubines, servants, I mean, so all of his children are Syrian. Of Syrian descent, I should say. So that's why it says, a Syrian ready to perish was my father, and he went down to Egypt and sojourned there. The Jewish people are of Syrian origin. Now, there's something peculiar, and I don't understand this, and I really don't understand it, but it's a part of rabbinic law. And that is, if a man has a Jewish mother, yet a Gentile father, he is considered a Jew. Now, we have an example of that in Timothy in Acts chapter 16, 1 to 3, where Timothy has a Jewish mother, but he has a Greek father. And what Paul does is take and circumcise Timothy so that he'll be acceptable among the Jews. He did it for testimony's sake, not that Timothy had to be circumcised to be saved, but for testimony, so he could minister to the Jews. Rabbinical law says if the mother is Jewish, the child is Jewish. Now, they say it's kind of like not in perfect standing, but you would think it'd be the father, wouldn't you? Because the father has the seed. But it's not that way, not in rabbinical law. And it's interesting how that works for Jesus. Because he didn't come from a man's seed, he came from God. He was born of God, yet born of a woman. And that makes him a Jew. By rabbinical law, he is a Jew. If you run me to some other circumstances, it's hard for me to work it out. I mean, what about Ruth? Ruth was a Moabite, but she was a convert to Judaism. I don't know if that matters or anything, but I don't think it holds true 100% of the time. But if you had a Jewish mother, the children could be Jews. And if they didn't get circumcised, maybe they wouldn't be considered. I don't know. because that was the seal of circumcision, was the seal of the nation. Anyway, let me get back to what I was talking about here. So, between Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and the patriarchs, they dwell in the land of Canaan about 215 years. And then we know what happens after that. Because of a famine, they end up going down into Egypt. And there's where they're there several hundred years. It is after their stay in Egypt that God calls out Israel back to the land of Canaan to conquer it. And Moses goes down there and challenges Pharaoh and Egypt and everything. You know all that goes. And they're told to come out. Now they're told, okay, so Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob have been there. Probably, I don't know, it's 400 or 500 years before they start to conquer the thing. They've already been there as far as their lineage goes. It doesn't matter who was there first. It's who God gave it to. That makes sense to you? Okay. Let's see if I can go back one more. I think I can go back one. Oh, I keep doing this. I'm awkward about this. I apologize for that. I went too far. There we go. I want to finish up talking about, well, that's not the one I want either. Where am I at, Robbie?
Which one are you trying to get to?
That one. Every time I turn my back, it changes, doesn't it? Okay. Yeah, I keep punching that button too. I'll probably hit myself in the eye and blind me. All right, you see we got here these three areas that are highlighted. These are contested areas of Israel right now. And we already know that belongs to them, right? You know that, right? It's interesting that the Golan Heights is bordered with Syria. So they've got a conflict with Syria about the Golan Heights. And then the West Bank, which is Samaria and a good portion of Judea, that's bordered by Jordan. So now they got a problem with Jordan. And guess what? Gaza, who's the border right here? Egypt. They shouldn't have gave up this land to begin with. That was a huge mistake, and God's been beating them for it ever since. They need to run that Arab right out of there, run them right into Egypt. They need to run them out of the West Bank. Listen, do you know if you go and look in the millennial passages, there is no stranger in Jerusalem and possibly anywhere in Israel. You won't even be able to live there. But definitely in this area, they need to get those folks out of there. God's not going to be happy with them until they've done that. But you know, the pressure from the United Nations and the United States and others is to get that Jew to compromise and give up this area. If they give up the Golan Heights, if I understand it, the Golan Heights is strategic. And by giving it up, they might as well they're just going to get bombarded from an area they don't want to get bombarded from. But the same would be true any of these. I mean, you can't have, they're surrounded by their enemies, man. They're just, and then they got enemies beyond that. Saudi Arabia is not exactly all that friendly, although they're not a problem right now. But then you got Iran and Iraq. They're just surrounded with them. You can see what the situation they're in. Yep.
Something interesting that I noticed when I was doing the West Bank map, you see it's got that little cutout there in the middle of it, down close to the south on the eastern side, on the western side of it.
Right here?
Yep, so that little notch, the vertical part of that notch is the city of Jerusalem. So Jerusalem is completely surrounded by Arabs.
And they just have a portion, don't they?
That little vertical notch at the end of that cutout runs halfway through Jerusalem. It splits Jerusalem right in half. So the city, the east half of Jerusalem is part of West Bank. The west half is Israel.
So they don't even have all of Jerusalem. And Judea, that's a good portion of Judea, isn't it? Yep, to the south here. This is Judea. In the Golan Heights is 695 square miles. The West Bank is 2,263 square miles. And the Gaza Strip is 141 square miles. To a total of 3,099 square miles. About 3,100 square miles that Israel needs to claim. Now, I don't know whether they get to claim this stuff before the Advent or not. It doesn't really matter. They're going to get run out of there, you know, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken by Daniel the prophet. Ye which in Judea flee into the mountain. You know, they're going to the wilderness. But in the millennium, not only are they going to get all those contested areas, but that entire area we talked about. They're going to get all of it. And talking, you know, when they talk about the deserts or the deserts bloom, you know, and all this, like a garden or whatever. Yeah, they've done some irrigation. They've done quite a few things over there, and there's a bunch of kibbutz that are growing a lot of vegetables. But that's not what that's referring to. When it talks about that desert blooming, man, we're talking about this entire area of Mesopotamia. We're talking thousands of square miles, man. He's just going to make the whole thing blossom. Listen, it was Eden. What do you think was there? It's going to be like, you know, he even talked about it being like the Garden of Eden that is coming, because there's going to be a lot of rain just before he comes. You got the early and latter rains that show up. But it says before him is the garden, before him is the Garden of Eden. Behind him, it's like a desolate wilderness where but he's going to grow the thing. He can grow it again. He can destroy it and grow it and destroy it and grow it and do whatever he wants. But that area is going to be, it's going to blossom. And that's going to be Israel. Probably change the topography and everything else. God can do whatever he wants. But you know what it is now? You know what he's left? If you really go and kind of look at these areas, you know, that Arab man, he's just, you know, he's sucking in sand with every breath. Wherever he's at, it's rocky, it's hilly, I don't know how to survive with that. I don't know where they grow anything. It's just, you know, it's just kind of desolate. Egypt, you know, you go there and sand and pyramids, man, camels. I hope they like camel meat. I don't know. Anybody puts their hand against that Jew, man, don't plan on eating very well. He'll do you in. And whatever they're saying, whatever they're contesting, and they're not going to get their way. And Israel does themselves this is the thing they know they can't have now. They gave them Gaza. When I heard they gave them Gaza, I was like, what is wrong with that Jew? They know better than to give them Gaza. And I brought in an article. I don't know if I probably don't still have it, but there was a little bitty article. The day after that they gave them Gaza, that means Israel moved out of there and literally had to upend and uproot Jewish families that lived there. Left everything. You know what the Palestinians, you know what them Arabs did? They tore everything down because they didn't want to touch anything a Jew made. And it was already complete. I mean, there were farms that were complete. They tore it all down. Destroyed it. The day after, they were launching missiles or mortars into Israel from Gaza. The day after. And this was supposed to be the peace plan. Oh, peace saith my God to the wicked. Anyway, I'll probably go into a little bit of Egypt next week, and then I don't know where I'm going to go from there. Eventually, we're going to get into some more area here in Israel and Palestine. So if you've been through this a few times, this is probably pretty boring to you, but it's amazing how much I don't know. So, all right, anybody got a question? Yep.